All right, welcome to the 5 a.m. grind. Horace, what's up, man?
Nothing much. What's up with you?
Good, man. I am going for a haircut today.
That's it's a big.
It's funny. It is, and it's one of those simple things you took for granted before the pandemic, and now when it's finally here, barbershops are open. You're really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I'll never take a haircut for granted anymore.
Yeah. I don't think I'm gonna be going right away. When did everything open up? It opened up yesterday, right?
This week.
I mean,
Wednesday, Thursday.
Was it Wednesday? Okay.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, I don't know if I want to go. It's gonna be like one of those where in the beginning when the stores opened up, the lines were like 5 hours long.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming like the places that are booking appointments, did you book an appointment?
Yeah, an appointment. Yep. Yep.
How long ago did you book an appointment?
They opened like last week, and then I got a slot at like 4 p.m. or something like that. Slots got taken up pretty quickly.
No, the places that are booking, I think, are just gone. So
Yeah. Do you believe, so let's talk about this whole thing about the reopening theme and inflation, blah, blah, blah. Do you think this is going to be transitory?
Absolutely not.
Oh, you think it's going to be here to stay?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like inflation is actually going to get worse. People are like, oh, you're coming back, and that's why inflation is like heating things up. Well, you need to have a deflationary period when everything stopped to have an inflationary period. But that never happened. Where was it? Deflation for there to be an inflation. Right?
Yeah.
It's all the money printing that went on that now, obviously, when people are coming out, they're spending this money that was created out of nowhere that's now circulating in the economy that's pushing everything up.
Yeah. Okay, so you know what we're going to talk about on our next podcast? It's going to be exactly this. For this week, I thought we'd talk about what I'm calling the most underrated skill in business. And what is that skill? It's communication. So here are the questions I wanted to cover today. Number 1, why is communication so important for business? Number 2, what are the traits of a good communicator? 3, how do you become a good communicator? And number 4, we'll ask each other how we've improved our communication skills. All right? So Harris, number 1, why is communication so important in business?
I would say business. I would say law as well. Law, like my profession is pure just communicating.
Right. Because I remember from past podcasts, you've always said, I'm always impressed when I see a good communicator. So why is that?
The fact that somebody can very succinctly and to the point articulate an idea that it can be very complex and nuanced shows me that they've thought about it, that there's understanding behind what they're saying, and they're able to pick from a very, I guess, breadth of information, pick the right amount of, I guess, information to convey to get their point across. So it in a very quick way shows a lot about a person, how much they know, how they prioritize what they know, and how they understand who they're speaking to, who their audience is, to convey the message the most effective way. So there's a lot of things in here because like communication is not just like, there's good grammar, right? That's a good place to start. But then there's also like understanding a topic. There's also understanding your audience. There's also like figuring out from this topic that you're talking about, right? That you could go on 5 million different tangents. Which one are you going to focus in on and really understand why? Yeah. So for me, that's very, very attractive.
I think you remember when we did that podcast about one of the most important skill sets in business, we said that was sales.
Yeah.
Right? And now we're saying one of the most underrated skill set in business is communication. I would say, like, you take sales, you take marketing, those are very important in business. But what is like underneath all of that is communication.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Because if you have crappy communication, you can't do marketing, you can't sell yourself, for God's sakes. So everything just falls apart. I feel like it's like the ground floor to almost everything in business.
I mean, sales, again, just boils down to communication.
Yes,
right?
It really
That's
does.
all it is.
It really does.
Like understanding what the other person wants.
Yeah.
And then giving them, like, explaining to them in a way where they can understand how you're offering them what they're looking for.
Absolutely. And one of the things about communication as well that sometimes people miss, and I made the same mistake as I was writing some of the questions for this episode, and that is that you always think a communication is me speaking to somebody, but communication is very much two ways.
Yeah.
It's you communicating, but it's also you being an effective communicator and actively listening to
Yeah.
your audience. And like you just said, it's like speaking to your audience. Knowing how to do that is such an important thing to have.
It's the difference between speaking to and speaking at somebody.
Yes.
Right. So if you're just speaking at, and I think a majority of people, I would say a lot of people, are just speaking at. All the high functioning individuals in my life that I've seen, whether in business, anywhere else, they're speaking to, and they really understand, like, okay, well, I've got like 10 things. I have to understand what's important to the other person and then convey that message. So sales is one thing, right, where you're trying to get business in. But even when you're talking to a client, right, and you're trying to convey a message, you're selling an argument, basically.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know if that like sounds good, but really you are selling an argument. You're trying to convince somebody that this is the right path or this is what they should be doing or whatever it is. So you're going to have to convey that message in a way where it's received properly. Right?
Yeah.
A lot of people, I feel like, okay, well, as they feel like communicating is as long as I've got something to say to you and I can put it on a piece of paper and you read it, my job is done.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's understanding, like, okay, where are you coming from? Okay, what do I want you to know? Okay,
Yeah.
how do I structure this?
Yeah.
So that, like, in the beginning, you're looking at one thing, then you're looking at another, and then you're looking at another to finally kind of be like, all right, this kind of makes sense. Maybe I want to speak to them further, or I agree, or whatever your objective is.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think you touched on a couple of things which I really like, and this is how I look at communication in its essence. And that is that, number one, you got to be able to take a complicated message and really boil it down to what the essence of that message is. And sometimes when you're communicating, I think it's very important to impart to your audience as to why it is they're listening to you. Like, why should I give my time to you? Why am I listening to you? Why are we in this meeting? Why am I listening to this presentation? Why am I listening to this sales pitch? Like, why are we here? Like, why are you saying this or imparting this message? Because if that's not coming across, I think the whole message is completely lost.
Oh, I agree 100%. I find even with the employees of the firm, the individuals who communicate the best, not just with clients, but with me, they're the ones who I will trust more as well. I will trust them with more nuanced projects, more nuanced services, clients, and then their experience ultimately gets better too, because the thing with communication, like you said, is two ways. So it's not just about you telling somebody something or you writing something for someone. If you're a good communicator, you can also read people really well.
Yeah.
So when you somebody's saying something, you understand it really well. You just understand situations better because you're able to, understand what somebody's saying, what somebody's written, to gather what their message is.
Yeah, yeah. There's a quote on this I have. It's, when people talk, listen completely. Most people never listen. It's like the whole thing about, people listen to respond, but not listen to understand, or something like that. Something to that effect. There's that other quote as well, which I really like. It's like they listen to basically be able to respond to you, not listen to understand you. They're just like listening so that, bark back at you with some sort of a rebuttal. So great. I think we've covered that question. Number 2, what are the traits of a good communicator? And maybe, I don't know, do you have any favorite communicators, like presidents or public speakers that you like?
Personally, I don't know if this person's amazing.
Yeah.
But a lot of people have said so, and I think he's good. But I thought President Obama was a pretty good communicator.
Yeah. I was gonna say Obama too. I went there.
He's
pretty
charismatic,
good.
and he was, he conveyed his message, and he was pretty calm in all his conversations. He was articulate. He was present. So there's a lot of things there that I felt like really got you to kind of, he pulled you into the conversation.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was good. And it's not like everything he's talking about is exciting, right? It's often enough it's dry, it's nuanced, it's complicated, it's controversial. So,
Yeah.
and to be able to convey it, convey a message properly at that time shows how good of a communicator you are.
He definitely is. And yeah, you're right. He takes a lot of complicated messages about the economy, etc. And when you're communicating as a president, you speak to everybody in the country, people who have a high school education, kids, everybody. So it's really important for you to be able to dumb down the message and communicate to everyone. Another good communicator, I think, in my view, is Oprah. I think Oprah is really good. You always see her interviewing people. I've seen a couple of interviews where Oprah is actually interviewed, like she's the interviewee. She's fantastic, like a really, really good communicator. Very confident, very articulate, imparts a very clear message. Absolutely love it. One of the things, though, traits about a good communicator, I think when I go back to Obama, and the thing that I learned from his speaking style, which I've tried to also take on, is that I don't know if you used to know this about me, but whenever I used to be able to communicate or answer a question, I used to always speak really quickly.
I think that's a lot of people.
And never take pauses when I'm talking. Yeah. And you realize how important it is, even for your audience, to just slow down, take pauses, let the audience take its time to process and understand what you just said, right? Because when you're speaking, it just helps your audience be able to keep up with you, to stop, think about what you're saying, understand that message and capture it. Those pauses and basically slowing down a little bit is actually good for your audience. And for you too. It helps you gather your thoughts in your head.
Yeah. And the thing is there's a few things that I've learned from this. First of all, like I feel like a lot of people who are speaking quickly, they speak quickly because they feel, because it's only focusing on them, right? They feel that like, and I used to do the same thing. They feel like if they're slower, they may be disingenuous. So if they're faster, it's like it has to be the truth because it came out so fast.
Yeah.
There is an element of that, right? The other thing is that what I've learned in sales. So in sales, whether you're selling your business, whether you're selling yourself, whether you're trying to convey an argument, a message, it doesn't have to be your employer. It could be your spouse. It could be your siblings. It could be your children. It could be anybody, right? Anybody in your family. If you're running 100 miles an hour and then all of a sudden you have to stop to think, they're all of a sudden going to start questioning what you're doing, right? So whereas if you're you have a pace, if you pause, you pause all the time, so they're not going to question.
Very true.
Right. So but that's one of the biggest things, because if you're trying to convince somebody of something, you don't want them to start questioning you in the middle of something. And just because you pause just to take a breath, there's nothing wrong, right? Thinking about something is not wrong. I encourage people to think before they speak. I will tell my employees, because sometimes they will try to throw an answer right back at you. Like, I'm like, hey, I want you to look at this. Yeah. Right? Take some time to process, then tell me what you see here. You get what I mean? So just because you want to throw something back to be like, I know it, it's okay. People in general weren't born with all the knowledge that they have, right? You have to pick it up somehow. So even if you are thinking about something to process something, it's good. It shows that there's several things going on in your mind, right? And you're trying to figure out how does all of this come together and what's the best course of action.
Yeah. The thing about pausing as well in communication is it's a lot more awkward as the person speaking than it is to the person listening. You think it's awkward because you're pausing and you're like, oh my God, I'm waiting for so long and I'm thinking the other person must be thinking I'm stupid. But they're not. They're just also trying to keep up and catch up to you. Yeah. So it's not as awkward as you think it is. I used to think it was really awkward as the person that is communicating. But then you realize that listeners need a little bit of time to process whatever you just said. And it's okay to be able to slow down and pause.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree.
Yeah. All right. So number 4, how do you become a good communicator? It's a tough one. That's a tough question. I'll give you my answer to that. Maybe it is pretty simple. I don't know. It's to throw yourself in situations where you're forced to communicate. I mean, you're not going to be good. You're going to suck. If you're a terrible communicator, initially, throwing yourself in situations where you're forced to communicate, you're not going to be very good. You're going to suck.
Yeah.
But eventually what I can tell you is that you can slowly improve. One of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast, at least one of my reasons, is because I feel like this has helped me communicate better. It's helped me slow down, be able to speak coherently and sort of hold a message and impart whatever it is that I'm trying to say in a very succinct form.
Yeah, but I would say you were a well above average communicator to begin with.
I don't know, it's high praise.
But I would say but I would
praise.
say like somebody who's starting off, for the average person.
Yeah.
I would say for people like that, because for them to write, because we've been around each other all the time.
Yeah.
So I would not, and by no means, I think you may want to refine, like you're refining, if that's what you're saying. Right?
Yeah.
You maybe refine your communication, as am I, as is like just like in life, as you're kind of further on in your career, you always want to just refine, and that's kind of the stage we're at, right? Because when you get to like the CEOs of organizations, they're very succinct. There's like a sentence or two that says everything, and that's it, done.
Yeah.
Right? And they're not talking out of nervousness. They're not talking to fill up like time or whatever, right? But I think for the vast majority of people, I feel like they're not strong communicators because writing has been taken out of the society. I think if somebody wants to become a good communicator, and most people are average, they need to start figuring out how to write. Because when you're writing something, that is learning how to communicate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's learning how to, like, okay, if I'm going to give you an argument, what am I going to say first? What am I going to say second? What am I going to say third? Now, this writing is not about, like, high school English where you're just trying to, be verbose. You're trying to get to the point and trying to say, okay, this is what I need to say. If you're sending out an email, how would you say this in an email?
Yeah.
Right? And then when you start thinking like that, then slowly when you get into, like, just oral communication, those habits pull in, because now you want to structure a conversation. So when I'm talking about something, right, I'm not just saying, hey, I'm just not vomiting all over you and saying this is like what I feel, right? It's more like, okay, what's important? What do I need to say to you? What do I need to not keep from you, but what's irrelevant, right? And how do I structure it? And writing allows you to sit back and think about all of that more so than just kind of talking.
That's good. We haven't covered writing so far in this discussion as communication. That's really important. Do you feel like sometimes word limits actually help with that? Because they force you to sort of think how to communicate a message that you have, especially if you're the type of person that likes to write a lot or use a lot of words, to be able to just be concise and get to the point really quickly.
I feel like I think it's a really rudimentary way to force people to start thinking about what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Because I think that normally, if you are already succinct, the word limit doesn't matter. You're just trying to get to the point as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I also feel like, okay, if you look at like books on philosophy and stuff from Plato, Socrates, all these guys who are kind of really talking about, or any other religious scholars as well, right? If you go into like Islamic religious scholars, Christian religious scholars, even Judaic ones, they're gonna be, when they're talking about their books that they're writing, are very small. They're not big. Nowadays, you've got some guy talking about like nothing. New York Times bestseller. The book's like 200 pages. Yeah. It's like okay, what are you talking about? It can't be more important what these guys, like these philosophers, scholars, whatever, talked about, right? It can't be nowhere near as important as that, right? You're talking about like, I don't know what it is, what's going on today, right?
Yeah.
Just the latest, like whatever has kind of caught the interest of society in the last 15 minutes, but they're so verbose.
Yeah.
Right? They're not to the point. Because if it was to the point, man, it would be like a paragraph and that's it. Because you could fit these books in a paragraph.
Sometimes you can.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie.
So like the Cliff Notes, like, okay, well, I mean, Cliff Notes is something that like I feel should be the real book. Because it's not cheating. It's just
like why'd you write this book in the first place? Tell me that, right?
So it's like
what are the key messages? Don't tell me the 300 pages I need to read to figure out the messages.
Overall, it kind of shows how society's going. Like, oh, I paid $30. How big is the book? Right? Okay, this kind of feels good. I got enough pages in here, paid for something, right? Because that's what they're attributing value to.
Yeah.
Right. And then on the other end, the author is attributing knowledge to. The more pages I can get in, the more I know. So I wouldn't like. Currently, I would not look at that at all. At any of these books, but writing, like, just if you look at past writers, the great writers, their books are very small.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. I wanted to get your thoughts on two things I thought about just on this topic of how to become a good communicator. The first one was, I think it's really important for people to stay authentic to themselves. You know, like if you like Barack Obama's communication style, that doesn't mean you become exactly like him, but you can emulate some of his style and sort of adapt it to your own. Because I think it is quite important to stay authentic to your style and your voice and the way you speak, etc. But you can certainly take some of the styles that other people have and adapt it to your own. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that. Number two is, and this is a quote that I have, which made me think about this as well. And it says that the best speakers in the world are the best storytellers. And I feel like that is really important. Because communication at the end of the day, and correct me if I'm wrong, even with your employees, you tell them, do this, and then they'll do it. And then quite likely they'll forget it. But if you attach a story as to why that thing is important, because it will result into this, and you were in a past situation with a client when you didn't do this and it messed this up and these were the consequences, I bet you they remember the story much better than just a simple, clear instruction.
Yeah, and I think storytelling, it's not even just employees. If you talk to clients, they remember things better. And storytelling is always, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? You're proceeding towards something. You're not just kind of factually whatever. And I think even Nasib Talib in his Black Swan book says that, right? Like if you said, like, if you gave stats on like a murder, like this person was stabbed 5 times in a house, nobody's going to remember. But as soon as they say, like, his the guy's wife found him cheating on her, so she stabbed him a couple of times, all of a sudden everybody's going to know what happened, or like what the details of that story are.
Human beings love a good story. We love good drama.
But back to that other point where you said, like, how
adapting and communication to
being
your own
authentic
style.
to yourself. I completely agree, but people also need to understand, like, for example, Obama, when he's speaking, he's speaking to a certain audience, like we just went over, right? Like you said, he's speaking to kids. He's speaking to, like, now if I started speaking presidential to you, you'd be like, what the heck is going on? Right? And he's not doing that, right? He's not speaking to his wife the way he's speaking on
I don't
camera,
think he does.
Right?
I don't think he does.
So it's like, you really have to, like, understand, if you're looking at somebody and how they speak, understand the completeness of it all, right?
Yeah.
Like why that person is speaking, where they're speaking, who they're speaking to, and understand how all of that is, and then take what you like from it. And then, like again, you said earlier, you got to go out and experiment. Like, how did that work? When I pause, am I pausing for too long? Am I pausing not enough, right? Because that, at the end of the day, becomes more of an experience thing. You cannot learn. There's no magic to it, like, you got to pause 5 seconds and then keep going. It really depends on reading the room and understanding. That's a gut feeling that you start building.
I think it's also important when you're communicating to be able to know, again, like we said, it's 2 ways. You should know when you've lost your audience as well and be able to adapt in real time. Because if you're the type of person, you're going to be like, oh, I've practiced my communication and my pitch, and it's going to be exactly like this. And I'm going to go through my pitch no matter what happens. No, like you could have the perfect pitch, but still lose your audience. And it sometimes requires you to be able to pivot and adjust real time. Right? You can't just like write a script and be like, here's my pause, blah, blah, blah. And be like, I'm just going to run through this. Well, if your message isn't being received by your audience, you need to change in real time.
Yep. And that's the difference between, again, talking to and at somebody, right? Like, if you're a professional athlete, you're not going to be like, okay, I've got this move, I'm just going to use this move, right? Doesn't matter what the other person is doing, right? And if there's, like, blocks coming your way, then you're going to get blocked. No, they're looking at how the other person's reacting. They're looking at, like, there's testing the boundaries of their opponents as well in any professional athlete. And then based off of that, they might have a few things that they have that they're going to use.
Yeah.
That's why I no longer write any of my speeches out word for word.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I will write, like, point form.
Point form. Okay.
Like, this is what I want to talk about. This is what I want to talk about, and then I want to talk about this. And then depending on how the audience is and how everything is going, I go and I make sure that like I speak according to that.
Yeah, fantastic. Nice. I have another quote here which talks about communication is really the language of leadership. What do you think about that? I feel like that's absolutely true. When it comes to leadership, good leaders, your job as a leader is to motivate your employees, your workforce, etc. But foremost out of everything, it's like for you to impart onto your employees and your organization the mission of your company, what problem you're solving for your customers, and all of that stuff comes down to communication. It's communication to your employees, communication externally to shareholders and other stakeholders, communicating to clients and stuff like that. That's all communication.
Yeah. I mean, leadership, like it's a lot of it is motivation. Motivating. It's about making sure everybody has a common goal. Everybody has buy-in, right? And all of that revolves around communication.
Yeah.
You're always communicating something to someone else.
Yeah.
Right? I think when you're like, for example, starting off in your career, earlier on in life when you don't have that much experiences, when you go to work, you're working. You're not necessarily, you're communicating your work to your boss, but your boss most likely already knows what you're doing. Right? So whether you're good or a bad communicator at that point is not like determining your success as much. But as you get higher up in your career and you're managing people and you're getting further away from the final work product, from the clients of the business, communication becomes so much more
important, right? All right, so last one here before we wrap up. How have you improved your communication skills in general? Any tips?
I mean, I guess I always take my emails seriously. That's one of the things.
Okay.
Like every single time I get an email and I'm not like, I'll just send them a quick answer.
Yeah.
I will sit down and I will try to craft something that people can understand, that like it's quick, it's succinct, and like I just basically, my writing I try to take seriously. And I hate bad grammar. When somebody sends me an email with bad grammar, I'm just like,
you're all over it.
Yeah, like like if anybody working for me has bad grammar, I just get so irritated, right?
Yeah.
If you should have at least I'm not even asking for Shakespeare, right? I'm just like, yo, like you need to have something where you're kind of like, you understand the rules of grammar, right? And it's not just about getting your message across. And sometimes, you know what, I'm not going to lie, clients on the other end sometimes don't care as much. Sometimes they do, and it's hard to tell. But for me, it's like whether they care or not, I don't care. We have to communicate in our business very, very effectively.
Nice. I think for me, the way I've improved my communication skills is like, throw myself into situations where I'm forced to be able to communicate, to present, etc., because it's only by throwing yourself in these situations that you'll eventually become better and improve, right? Because you'll start to figure out, okay, these are my mistakes. This is where I'm not very good. This is what I need to improve on, etc. Sometimes helps to have a friend that's also, like gives you constructive criticism as well, and is able to sort of tell you, hey, maybe you should focus on this, maybe improve this, change that. That helps a lot too. I'd say throw yourself in situations and try to improve like that. Yeah,
I agree.
Any final words on communication?
Always be writing. That's what my
keep practicing, keep going, and keep doing it. I did want to end off with a public service announcement. I should have done this in the beginning. Maybe I'll do this in the next podcast as well at the very beginning. And that is that, as you know, we have been putting out episodes for the 5 a.m. grind twice a week.
Yeah.
Right? We're now pivoting a little bit, and we're going to put out like one quality episode every week for the podcast. So that'll be dropping on Thursdays at 5 a.m. Obviously, it's the 5 a.m. grind. Yeah. So it'll be once a week. We'll also try to do more guest interviews and stuff like that. We've done quite a few episodes. It's been a lot of fun. We want to keep doing this, but obviously be respectful of our schedules, etc., and other commitments. What we would like to try to do eventually as well is try to do some more short form content for the YouTube channel. So that should be interesting coming up in the fall at some point. Stay tuned. All right, we'll leave it there. Yep. All right, man. See you guys in the next episode.
Take care.
Take care.